good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be joining us from across the globe. We welcome you to today's edition of the Citadel webinar series, where, as usual, I'm very excited to have you. My name is Abisayo Olugbade-Agbonyin. I'm with the BKO Citadel team. BKO Citadel Limited is one of the leading strategy, manpower, and capacity development firms in Nigeria today. And we run this Citadel webinar series where we feature individuals that we consider to be value adders in their different spheres of influence. And today we have two of such great women in the persons of Dr. Ola Brown and Segilola Adeola. Moving very quickly, I'm going to welcome them both. Welcome, Doctor, and welcome, Segilola.
Thank you.
Dr. Ola Brown is the founder of, as you might already know, is the founder of Flying Doctors Healthcare Investment Company, while Segilola Adeola is a senior advisor at Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors. So, ladies, do you have any few, just little highs to say before I go on to read your profile?
Good morning, Dr. Brown. Good to meet you.
Thank you very much for being here. So our dear and esteemed attendees, we thank you very much for your time and for your consistency being here with us. We do hope that so far we have been able to impact your lives very positively. I'm going to go ahead straight into the profile. Dr. Ola Brown is the founder of the Flying Doctors Healthcare Investment Group, a group that invests and operates across the healthcare and wellness value chain in hospital and clinic construction and refurbishment, diagnostics and equipment, health facility management, pharmaceutical retail, drug manufacturing, air ambulance services, and logistics, and then consulting and healthcare technology. Wow, that already sounds very impressive. She studied medicine and surgery at the Hull York Medical School, after which she worked in acute medicine in the UK. Her postgraduate areas of study were in pre-hospital emergency care, healthcare leadership, and healthcare delivery. She has a certificate in economic policy making from IE Business School, Spain, a certificate of accounting for decision making from the University of Michigan in the United States, and a certificate in finance and investing in infrastructure. I guess it's focused on project finance from Università Bocconi in Milan. Pardon me, my Spanish isn't so great. She also holds a master's degree in finance and economic policy from the University of London. Along with two other directors, Dr. Ola runs a leading venture capital firm, Green Tree Investment Company, which provides capital growth to some of Africa's most exciting tech startups. Green Tree Investment Company has invested in startups in various sectors, including fintech, media, agri-tech, manufacturing, e-commerce, health tech, and edutech, making it one of Africa's leading venture capital firms. The total value of the Green Tree portfolio is valued at almost $80 million. Great job, Doctor. He has published 4 books and has also written articles in the British Medical Journal, the Journal of Emergency Medical Services, the Niger Delta Medical Journal, the New York Times, and the Huffington Post. He's also an international editor of the Journal of Emergency Services and the LinkedIn Top 10 Global Healthcare Writer. Dr. Ola is an international speaker who has spoken at the TED Global Conference, the European Union, the Swiss Economic Forum, the UN, the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Cambridge University, and the Aspen Ideas Festival. She and her work have been featured by CNN, the BBC, Forbes, and Al Jazeera. She's a member of the American College of Emergency Physicians and has received multiple awards and nominations, These include the Mold Breakers Award, the This Day Award, the Future Award as Entrepreneur of the Year, New Generation Leader for Africa, among so many others. Dr. Ola Brown sits on the board of the Professional Women's Network, the Lagos chapter. She leads the group as a business group at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, NESG, which is a think tank. She also facilitates trade between Nigeria, the United States, and the UK through her seat on the committee of the British Business Group and the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, respectively. That's a robust profile, and I am so honored to even have the opportunity to read such. Welcome, Doctor. I'm going to go on to read Segilola Adeola's profile. Segilola serves as a senior advisor at the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors and is responsible for projects, grants, and knowledge management for digital finance and economic inclusion projects across Africa. Prior to this current role, she was a manager at Accenture and focused on providing consulting services to the global development sector. She also worked with Schlumberger as a value and risk consultant. Segilola holds a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering and electronics and graduated on the honors roll from the University of Manchester Institute of Science and Technology. A master's degree in mobile and satellite communications from the University of Surrey, United Kingdom, and an MBA from the Warwick Business School, also from the United Kingdom. She is very passionate about economic empowerment, the environment, climate change, and girl-child education. One thing I can tell from reading both profiles is that these two ladies have successfully crossed, changed sectors from where they started from and where they are now. But I'm not going to take too much of your time. Dear Segilola, the floor is yours. Please grill Doctor as you wish. Flip her up and down, over and about, anyhow you wish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abisayo. Lovely to meet you, Dr. Brown. In terms of grilling and flipping, I think the doctor is the one with the expertise to do that. So, Dr. Brown, I'm really glad to be here, and it's a pleasure and honor to actually be here with you, and to have this chat with you. So, in my childhood, at some point, I wanted to become a doctor. At another point, I wanted to become a pilot and to be able to fly. But at no point in time did I ever even dream of being both, no matter how delusional I was or aspirational I was. So I would like to understand and to source out what made you, what passion drove you to become a doctor and a flying one at that, and what is Flying Doctors all about?
Okay, sorry, just to get an idea of the audience, how old is everybody in the audience and what stage are you guys at in your career? If you could just put it into the chat box so it can sort of pop up while I'm speaking, that would be useful because then I can contextualize my statement. So if people are really young, then I'll tell you guys to follow your passion. But if you're older, then I can have a more nuanced conversation about the difference between sort of passion and skill, and sort of how to balance those two, I guess. So I'm seeing some ages come up, and I think it's quite a mature audience, so I can tell you people the truth. So when I was young, my sister had sickle cell anemia, and I wanted to find a cure, and I thought, the best way to find a cure and make sure that she didn't go to hospital anymore was to be a doctor. Which probably wasn't the best way, but that was the idea that I started off with. I also wanted to start a business in healthcare in Africa. When I started practicing medicine, I realized it was actually quite slow. I started in a clinical job thinking that, I'll be able to see lots of patients, hundreds of patients per day, but I actually realized that the average doctor probably only sees about 10 patients per day. And I needed more momentum. I wanted to save the world. And after spending 6 years in university, I realized that, there's only so much one person could do. So then I applied for a scholarship in Japan. And the reason why I even ended up going to Japan was because my youth pastor in church when I was in university, I always thought that I wanted to marry a pastor at that stage. So my youth pastor at the time said that, that he wants to marry a good Christian, but also he could only marry somebody with knowledge of Japanese. So I took extra modules outside medicine to learn Japanese. So when I finished and I was a doctor, I'm like, okay, I speak Japanese. So let me just apply for all the scholarships in Japan to do research, because perhaps research could get me closer to finding this cure. So I did a research fellowship in Japan. I got this, one of the only Black women to be awarded that scholarship by the Japanese government to go and study stem cells and genetic diseases in children, which I did. And all of those decisions were driven by passion. So when I decided, okay, you know, this clinical thing didn't work out, the research was not going to be realistic in terms of making a cure for like the next 20 to 30 years. I was doing bench research. I decided that maybe I could start a business, and that way I could employ people and those people could make a huge impact across Africa. And I decided to learn how to fly. And I started learning that because I thought, if I'm going to start an air ambulance, and I must know everything, both the aviation and medicine side. So I became very, very passionate about learning to fly as well. So I've sort of discussed 3 really passionate and badly thought out decisions, right? Because you don't have to study medicine for 6 to 7 years to, you know, be involved in life sciences. You don't have to learn to fly to start an air ambulance company. And you don't have to learn a whole new language to marry a pastor. So I made a lot of passion-driven decisions, and I think that they were good decisions. But I think, you know, the major turning point in my life really happened when I started making more logical decisions, to be honest. And I think it's about finding what you're passionate about, what you can do every day, but also what makes money. And what makes impact, and what sort of defines your goals. And I started to realize, you know, as I grew my business, I really sort of needed a knowledge of finance. We grew our business to the largest air ambulance service in West Africa. We started doing other services for our clients as well as air ambulance services. And at that stage, we started investing in other businesses as well. So we broke off, invested in a fund and started doing venture capital investments. And then we converted the whole vehicle actually into a funding vehicle that invested across the healthcare chain, from drug manufacturing to diagnostics to retail pharmacy. And at that stage, I realized that to make the most impact, I didn't have to go and do another master's in healthcare management. I actually needed to understand the way money worked. I needed to understand how to do venture capital, private equity, project finance investments. I needed to understand what I was reading in certain contracts. And I needed a good knowledge of mergers and acquisitions because we're acquiring stakes in different companies. So that was when I actually started my master's in finance. So I think the starting point of the question was around passion. And I think, you know, at the beginning of my career, I made decisions solely on passion. But sort of as I've matured, I still make decisions in line with what I'm passionate about, but I make sure that I put numbers to those decisions. Because otherwise you can spend a lot of time doing things that aren't particularly relevant to what you want to end up doing, or they're not the exact skills that you need to be able to succeed in what you want to do. So you don't necessarily need to be a doctor to start an air ambulance company, neither do you need to be a pilot. I learned that pretty quickly. But you need to be a solid finance person. You don't really need to be a banker to start an investment fund, but again, you need knowledge of mergers, you need knowledge of acquisitions, you need knowledge of venture capital, and a retail banker might not even have those skills. So I think in the quest for work that we love, we need to balance passion and skills. And the people that tell you follow your passion are usually like older rich people, right? And they're usually things like steel and cement and pasta and oil and gas. Nobody is passionate about crude oil, you know, but the thing makes money. And if they give you an oil block today, I assure you that you become passionate about oil and gas immediately. When you're doing 10,000 barrels a day and the thing is bringing in several $1 million per day, you immediately be a representative of the energy sector. You'd be immediately passionate about it. So I think that, you know, skills, income, and passion are the key, not just passion alone. That's been my learning curve from the days of learning Japanese for a pastor. Who eventually married a real Japanese girl because he said mine was not authentic.
Can you imagine that? Oh gosh. So I can see that the whole trajectory has been passion driven. You've backed it up with logical decision. You've backed it up with drive. You've backed it up with being financially savvy. And when you mentioned about the oil and gas, the barrels, I tell you, $ will drive passion any day, anytime.
Any day.
But all this can't be sustainable. There's only so much passion can sustain you. There's only so much logic can make sense. There's only so much that drive can keep you going, and there's only so much dollars that can come in that would not just filter down the drain if it's not well managed. So now you're a doctor, you fly, you're also running a business. How do you balance all three? Being able to run the business, because you have the passion for medicine, so obviously you care about your patients. You have the passion for getting patients from one place to the other, but how do you keep this business running? What keeps the lifeline going without running into some kind of maybe financial debt? Because I'm sure this must be quite cost consuming.
So I actually don't really believe in balance. I believe in focus. So if there was a balance focus spectrum, then you'd find me generally doing only one or two things. So I don't practice medicine anymore. I haven't flown a plane in years, a helicopter in years. I don't do balance at all very well. And I think, it's we women that they tell, you can balance everything. Don't worry. Women are very, very good at multitasking. And I'm not sure that that's completely true. If not, Aliko Dangote would be female and he would have 20 children, right? And he'll be able to clean his house at the same time, and he'll be able to take care of his in-laws. But if you look at some of the most successful people career-wise, it's because they've actually focused on that career and they've not tried to do 20 things at once. So for me, I don't try and do a lot of things at once. I generally do one or two things and really, really focus and drill down on them. So I haven't touched a patient in years. I don't intend to. I focus on, I guess, the things I can't employ anybody else to do. So it's quite easy to get pilots. It's quite easy to bring in doctors to collaborate. And we do that. We have about a team of almost 100 now that work with us, delivering our healthcare projects across Africa. And I work more on the finance side because I believe that one of the biggest problems in Africa is the ability to attract capital. And I think that I'm quite good at that. I'm quite good at deploying capital. I'm quite good at adding value to the projects that I've deployed capital to. And I believe that that's one of the rarest skills that you can't buy into your business. I think it's something that is very relationship driven as well. So that's what I concentrate almost 100% of my time on. So I don't think everybody needs to be as focused as me, particularly. I think that a lot of people, especially a lot of ladies, have managed to find balance in their career. But if there was balance here and there was focus on the other side, I would say that I'm much more towards focus. I tend to do only one or two things, and I tend not to be distracted from those one or two things. So I don't try and take on too much. And everything that I do is sort of geared towards one or two particular goals that I have for the year. And I'm very, very strict about that. So my level of focus is quite intense. At the beginning of the year, I set my yearly goals. Every month, I set my monthly goals. I have a mentor coach that takes me through every month, what I've achieved every month. I have a mastermind group that takes me through again. We meet every month and discuss what we've done in that month. Every night I write down what I'm going to do the next day, what I'm going to achieve. So I'm quite, intense when it comes to focus. And my best book that has helped me focus is a book called by Alan Davis. It's called Getting Things Done. And his big concept in that book is that your mind was created for having ideas. It wasn't created for holding ideas. So my system of sort of writing things down, intersets of quarterly, monthly, weekly, daily goals, kind of helps me stay focused on my big goals for the month, year, and quarter. And they're always on the wall as well. So it's infected, should I say, my entire organization. So all the goals for the quarter and the years in all of the offices. I've borrowed somebody's office for this actually, because they're having a meeting in my office. But you know, all the team goals, all the departmental goals throughout the organization are always on the wall. And next to, you know, on my bedroom wall, there's a set of my goals. So every time I wake up, I see what I'm supposed to be doing in the year, what I'm supposed to be doing in the quarter. So definitely more focus than balance for me.
Wow, that's great. So, you know, having a mentor, a coach, and, you know, being able to list out what you're going to achieve, I think is really great. And it's something that we all
So
should.
can I just add color into that mentor thing? I think people mistake mentor coaches for something else. So it doesn't have to be a big man or a big person necessarily. And I also think that those big people are not even necessarily the best people to give you advice. So I don't know, like there's this thing that goes on Twitter where they say, oh, you know, would you rather spend 10 minutes with Dangote or collect 10 million naira? And you see people say, oh, you know, in the 10 minutes, what Dangote could impart into my life, you know, in those. And I'm like, you know, a mentorship relationship is not necessarily what you're going to extract quickly in 10 minutes. I pay my mentor and I pay my mentor good money. So it's not something that you just be following somebody around trying to like extract something. I think a coaching service is something that you pay for. And it's something where the person dedicates meaningful time to you on a monthly basis. And it doesn't even have to be a super rich person. In fact, I think some of the super rich people don't make good mentors because sometimes the way that they made their money is not easy to replicate. There's no guarantee that you're going to know a president. There's no guarantee that you're going to, you know, you're going to get some stroke of luck somewhere that somebody, there's no guarantee of that. So I think the best people that have been mentors and coaches to me are number one, paid professional coaches or members of my peer group that we meet every month. And number two, people that have a replicatable way to success. If you have a perm sec in Nappings that is willing to give you an oil block and your mentor, you're going for mentorship and the person is just giving you, you know, motivational speeches, then you feel like something is wrong. But you're not going to get that friend inside an NPC the same way that he has. So I think it's also important to be realistic about mentorship and see it as, you know, look at examples of replicatable success.
Yeah, I totally agree with you because we tend to look at mentorship as like a god or someone you want to be like, but then you necessarily cannot do exactly what they've done or replicate the steps, just like you said.
And
So,
sometimes they don't even know. They don't know what happens. They just had a friend that managed to make it all happen for them, or there was a deal somewhere that brought out a lot of money. So they're not even sure what to say to you. And you'll be going and like they'll be saying, oh, you know, follow your passion, just be strong, just persevere. And they can't really give concrete steps because their route to success wasn't that replicatable.
Yes, yes, I agree with you. So to segue slightly, you do have a mentor, you're running this business. We know how challenging our environment can be. Yes. How have you how have you managed to stay on top of all the challenges that it might have thrown at you, unexpected challenges? You know how it can be in our country, like you're not expecting something to happen. How has your business been able to stay above it all and to be able to just continue operating without actually having a downtime? Because I know you operate 365 days a week and 365 days a year and 7 days a week round the clock. How have you been able to stay resilient as an organization?
So, I say in one of my articles, and I actually said in my recent book that, in developed countries, there's only one set of forces that act on your business. It's just the market forces. So all you have to deal with is the forces of demand and supply. But when you do business in Africa, there are the market forces, demand, supply, finance, accounting, HR, all of the normal market forces that act on your business. But there are also the evil forces that can also act on your business. And sometimes when you're doing business in Africa, you spend 80% of your time on the evil forces and only 20% of your time even fighting the normal market forces. And, market forces, the way to fight market forces is in textbooks. You can read Harvard Business Review, you can read The Economist, and you can find out the way to deal with market forces from any professor that you speak to, from any executive education course that you go to. But to fight evil forces, there's no textbook for that. And I think that's that's one of the issues of doing business in a quite complex environment. There's a course at Harvard called Doing Business in Emerging Markets, and he doesn't use the term evil forces because obviously he's a Harvard professor and that is too crude. He uses the term institutional voids. These huge gaps in infrastructure, in policy, in skills, in talent, that we have to circumnavigate to make our businesses work. And it has been hard. We've had ups and downs in our business. But I think one of the things that has sort of kept me focused is, number one, having good support, both from my peer mentorship group, that's people that earn around the same as me, that we meet every month and discuss our business problems. And I think that if anybody is not in one of these groups, I would strongly invite you to try and form one or join them, because I think, everybody sees mentorship as one daddy in oil and gas that has an oil block that can like change your life, or one big banker somewhere. And I think, for me, I know all those billionaires and they've never really done that much for me. But the peer group, people that have been earning the same amount as me, that we meet on a monthly basis, that they're committed to the process, and I feel that I owe them something and they feel that they owe me something, and we can do favors for each other and grow together, have been the most helpful group over the past 4 to 5 years that we've been in that group. I mean, we're like a family and we call each other, we check up on each other. So I think support is important. And the most likely people that you're going to get support from are your peers. Yeah, the big men can come in once or twice, but they don't owe you anything. And you can't really add, you don't have the same level of reciprocity that you have with your peers. In fact, you will struggle to do things for them and they might not even notice, whereas your peers always notice, because those things mean a lot. The same things that mean a lot to you mean a lot to your peers. So I really think having a support group is important. Number two, I think being strategic with the relationships that you need in your industry. So there's a professor from Stanford, one of my favorites. His name is Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer. And you can find him on YouTube and watch his videos. Not everything you agree with, he's quite controversial. But one of the things that he does say is that when we're building relationships for our businesses, that we should be strategic. We tend to hang out with people that we like, our friends, people that make us laugh. And, the people in the industry that regulates you, the people in FIRS, the people, that you need for your business to function, they might not be funny. They might not be people that you'd normally feel comfortable hanging out with. Your industry peers, for instance, might not be people that you like, or the kind of characteristics that you'd see in a normal friend, but they are very, very strategic for your business. So making sure that you build relationships that are strategic for your industry and are strategic for your business, I think also helps in this environment. Because I'll quote another Harvard Business Review article. It's called Getting to Da. And again, it's about businesses in emerging markets. And in that article, it talks about the fact that relationships are more important in developing countries than they are in developed countries. And even one of the biggest examples of this is at Mo Ibrahim's conference. They had Bill Gates, richest man in the world, or used to be richest man in the world, and they had Dangote, and Mo Ibrahim was hosting a conversation with both of them. So they asked Dangote, "What have you learned from Bill Gates?" And he said, "Oh, well, I've learned to try and give away more of my money. I've not been very familiar with philanthropy, or as familiar as Bill Gates is. And one of the things that I've learned from Gates is just how much of his money he gives away." And he said that he's learned to live simply so other people can simply live, which I thought was a very, very powerful statement. But then they asked Bill Gates, "What have you learned from hanging out with Dangote?" And Bill Gates said, that this guy is always on the phone. He's always going to see people. That he's always having to call and engage with people that may have just sent an email. That why would you be calling people and going to see people? But in Africa, right, relationships are so important. You can't just send an email and expect things to just appear, right? It's not a developed country. We're not a developed nation. We have these institutional voids, as that Harvard professor describes it. And because of these institutional voids, we need to strategically build more of our relationships. I think that that's something that has been really helpful to me as well. So I've said two things. I'll just go to a third thing that I think that's helped with resilience, and that's with making sure that we're hedged in terms of currency, hedged in terms of our business lines. So we have quite a few business lines, and we also have geographical diversity. And being an international business that earns mostly in dollars, and that operates across the healthcare value chain also helps us to build that sense of resilience, so that when one business isn't particularly doing well or has a lull, we have other things to rely on. When one country in West Africa perhaps goes into recession, we have another country that is doing very well. And then in terms of currency, making sure that it's not just one currency that we're earning in, but quite a few. And so creating opportunities for geographical diversity, currency diversity, and also diversity in subsector also helps.
Okay, thank you. I'm being mindful of time here because you and I both could continue this conversation for the rest of the day.
Absolutely.
But we do have to leave time for our audience to, to put in their questions. But I'm just going to put in one more question before I stop being selfish with my time with you. So how do you prepare your organization for unexpected threats? Because every business can just, anything could just happen. So in terms of okay, I know you said that you do hedge in terms of your business line, in terms of your business lines, but how do you prepare as an organization? We have the COVID, for instance, I'm sure that's probably been good for your business, but in terms of businesses in general, what advice would you have to anyone who is running a business on how to prepare their organization for this?
So I think businesses in Nigeria do very well in terms of managing their operational income. But on your financial statements, you'll find that there's a line for operational income, and there's also a line for trading income. And I think that second line we don't do too well with, maybe because advice from our banks is not always that robust. But I think one of the things is to watch what we do with cash, to make sure that we're actively investing. So even if you do not earn in US dollars, you can trade in US dollars. Make sure that some of your treasury management is either in fixed deposit in dollars, make sure that it's in Euro bonds in dollars, make sure that it's in American stocks. Make sure, I don't know about cryptocurrency, I'm not that brave, I only have very small holdings in cryptocurrency, but Google, Amazon, so you still have some income in dollars, even if all of your income from your business is in Naira. So I think the first shield towards unexpected circumstances is to have some kind of cash cushion that can sort of tide you through in bad times when you might have to dip into those reserves to survive. I think the second thing in terms of making sure that, when there's these policy issues and these sort of flip-flops that kind of create business turbulence, recessions, things with monetary policy, things with structural policy that can change overnight, is to just be aware of the general political situation. And like I said earlier, that some people may not typically be your friends. Some people you might typically not want to hang out with certain types of people because they're, you can't laugh with them, they're not funny or whatever, but they can be really useful in terms of information. So I think understanding where your industry is headed, understanding what your regulators are thinking, understanding, what's and being closer to the political landscape. There's a really interesting article that I think every business person should read. It's by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and it's called Non-Market Strategy. And the whole idea of this non-market strategy is for business people to acknowledge that businesses just aren't economic agents. They're also political and legal agents, even more so in a country like this. There's also a course actually on non-market strategy. I'm not sure if it's free or not, but it's at Chicago Booth University, that shows how to manage sort of external factors, external factors, and be able to sort of get a heads up maybe before they happen by reading between the lines from the policymakers. You might not like policymakers, you might not like politicians, you might not like people in Abuja, but these are the people that can destroy your business in the blink of an eye. So it's good to attend the events, it's good to know what they are thinking, it's good to read the papers that they write and reading between the lines of the papers that they like. And you also see opportunities when you know them. All sorts of grants in one ministry of XXX that you won't really, you won't really know about if, you're not regularly speaking to them, or they're not in your circle, or you're not attending the events and webinars and hearings and things like that. So I think, that's important. And if, I don't think there are really huge policy flip-flops in America, but non-market strategy seems to be such a big deal, written about by Harvard, written about by MIT, written about by Chicago Booth. I think there's another business school that teaches a course on non-market strategy as well. And if you look at the most successful entrepreneurs in Nigeria, the Dangotes, the Abdul Samads, some of the bankers, the Tony Elumelus, then they use non-market strategy very strategically, maybe even more than they use market strategy to be able to drive their businesses forward. And I think that, whatever we feel about them, it's something that is legitimate, and I think it's something that we can all learn from.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm going to open it up for questions now, but just to recap some of the things that, you said that, is a great takeaway for me. So you mentioned about, market forces, and being able to read about those in textbooks, and how evil forces, there are no textbooks for that. And and you also gave, some key points about having a great support system and building strategic relationships, having a good network that you can rely on. And I'm sure the organizers of this program would also like, some of the details of those support groups that you mentioned, so that they can share with those who are interested and those that are, on the email chain, because I'm sure that would be something great, because a lot of businesses are running, but they really do not know how to create the support system, or are going it alone. So I will pass it on to Abisayo now. Thank you so much, Dr. Ola Brown.
Thank you very much, Segilola. That was an awesome. I think you ground her. I'm sure she looks shaken. Well done. Thank you, Doctor. That was very insightful. I've had the privilege of listening to you on many platforms, and I am experiencing the same feeling I've always experienced. I'm just usually very, very much in awe of how much you've been able to achieve so far. And then I made some points as well. Top of which is that you don't have to learn a new language to marry a pastor. So although I'm already married, but I'm going to pass this information to advise people as necessary. That it came directly from Dr. Ola Brown. And I also am aware personally that you're no more a roadside economist. Well done, well done. I will not call you a roadside economist at any point in time. Well done. So very quickly, we're going to move on to the questions and answers. There, as you would expect, quite a number of questions. Everybody wants to learn and hear from you. So I'm going to take the questions twice in each batch. I'm going to take 2 questions, in each batch of questions. So, and for the questions that we're not able to attend to live, possibly we'll attend to them by email. So very quickly, Adedeji Adeni is asking, what are the key challenges faced in some of the partnerships you engage in, and how do you deal with difficult service level agreements? That's from Adedeji Adeni. Abdullahi Bello Umar as well is asking, does Dr. Ola have an online membership program for those who seek growth? While I would not like to misquote Abdullahi, possibly he might also mean a mentorship program. So Doc, you have the floor.
Okay, so key challenges, especially around agreements. I think that the key challenges around agreements are the fact that you can't do business with everybody. I think due diligence is very important. I think background checks are very important. I think referrals are very important. And not every business is a good business. Some people will owe you, and some people you are not meant to be doing business with. So in terms of service level agreements, I think it's really important to take the time to vet certain organizations and individuals before going into business with them. And even prospective team members as well. It's really important to do the background checking as well. So I think the best guard against that, I guess, is again back to relationships and making sure that you can vet, do proper due diligence on, have protective agreements, maybe even get into, if you don't trust the person, maybe get into an escrow agreement where sort of the money is released by a neutral party and the money goes into escrow until the job is completed. But as much as possible in an environment where the court system for businesses, the legal frameworks that protect businesses aren't particularly robust, it increases the transaction, what we call in economics, the transaction cost. So it increases the amount of due diligence and that you have to do. It increases the asymmetry of information between parties that want to do business. And the best way to sort of counteract that is obviously by taking the extra time and making the extra effort to make sure that the people that you're dealing with are legit and the contracts are tight. So online membership, no. But there are plenty. I mean, I don't think there's a lack of online coaches, membership organizations. If you go on Google or you tweet, you can find some really good ones. I mean, there's just so many of these groups, and even within the group on here, I'm sure that you're up to 20. The best size of a group is about 6 to 8 people. So don't be hesitant to form your own and put frameworks in place that allow you guys, if you want to function as a mastermind group as well. But those mentorship groups are out there, and I think, you know, being part of one helps increase your resilience by default.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Very quickly, I'm going to take the next 2 questions. Royana Mohammed Sani asks, having a peer group with similar desire for growth seems hard in these days. How does one find one, form one, and overcome the unhealthy competitiveness within the circle? Adeto Oluwole also is asking, where can we find the Niger Delta Medical Journal?
Okay, so the journal is online. I can send that. I can actually send a link, so you can read some of the articles at least that we've published. So I can send it into Citadel, as well as all the other articles that we've published in different journals. And then peer group. How do you avoid unhealthy competition? I think so how do you set up? How do you find people? There should be people already in your circle. If you're hanging out with the right people, then I think it's about formalizing those relationships, putting some kind of structure around those relationships. Usually these groups are paid groups, something nominal, so that you guys can afford certain materials. You'll need to watch videos, you'll need to take online courses together sometimes. You'd need to read books together. So everybody contributing into a single pot, having a treasurer, having a group leader helps to do that. But that formal structure kind of gives you an alternative board, I guess, something like a board for your business, a personal board of directors, they call it, that can really help with a lot of strategic decisions that you may be struggling with, and making sure that the cadence of meetings is on a regular basis, whether it's monthly or, you know, every 2 months or every quarter, just making sure that you maintain those regular meetings and you have educational activities and you're active on your WhatsApp groups, so you can challenge each other.
All right, Doc, thank you very much. I'll be expecting the link, and I'm sure the members of the audience will be very grateful to receive any kind of content or links to more content that you can share with us. An anonymous attendee, pardon me, would like to know how your people or your team have contributed to how resilient your businesses have been. That's a very interesting question. How have you been able to cultivate the work ethic and passion to your team? Or is it the attitude organic due to how you recruit? And Aronka Emmanuel also is asking, when trying to scale your business, what's the most important first step to take, especially when this will involve diversifying from the original business plan? Thank you, Doc. You have the floor.
Okay, perfect. So in terms of team contributions, I have been really blessed with a super resilient and super trustworthy team. And I'm not sure, like quite a few of the senior managers have been with me for years, and we've been able to grow together almost like a family. And I see them more than obviously I see them. My family are in England, so I see them and speak to them more than I see my own family. And we've been able to sort of build that culture of mutual support into the organization. So I think teams are important. It's a paradox that there are over 20 million people unemployed in Nigeria, but we still struggle for talent, especially executive talent. And that's because of a whole number of reasons. So I think that, building a team is important. I think finding ways to incentivize teams are important. And I think, trying to provide as much stability for the team members as possible is also important. And making sure that you make building that relationship with the team a priority. And I also think that, if you make a hire and you realize that it's not right, I also think, making sure that you sort of end that relationship in the kindest possible way is very, very important, because I think that when somebody is dragging their feet and dragging down the team, then it can create a really weird dynamic. And I really think that it's important to be able to make those decisions quickly. And then I also think continuous professional development is more important for African companies than it is for perhaps companies abroad. And that's just because of the state of our education system here. I think more than ever, Nigerian organizations, as the education system continues to kind of deteriorate, I think we need to be learning organizations, and we need to dedicate probably more time than our Western peers to learning, to education, to training, so people can perform, at the best they possibly can. And then scale. The question of scale is such an interesting question. How do you scale, especially if you're going into another area of business? How do you finance it? How do you staff it? How do you control it in terms of change management, and make sure that the team members are aware? So I'll start with finance and scale. I think that, if you're trying to scale, there are probably two major options. You use your internal finances, so money that you've generated, profit that you've generated for your business, or you look for external financing. And you can look for external financing from debt or equity investors. I think the usual stop for most people when they're looking for financing is the bank. And the more you know your bankers, the more chance you are of getting financing. It's also a relationship game. So you might use your online apps all the time and don't think you need to speak to an account officer ever. But if the first time your account officer sees your face is when you're asking for a loan, it's going to be more difficult than if you had an ongoing relationship and you were talking and he would be discussing these needs for financing, and sort of they'll be more willing to help you put something together that their branch manager or their retail manager will approve. So that's about finance and scale. The equity options are there, but they're not that widespread in Nigeria. But if you want to go to equity financing, then there's a higher transaction cost for that. And you need to sort of be ready to, really use your network to find the right equity financiers. In terms of change management and people, you might have to have people doing 2 jobs at the same time, really working on the engine 1, which is what's generating money now, and the engine 2, as Bain and Company call it, that will be generating money in the future. So I think communication is really key when you're scaling. Being what's his name called? Mark Andreessen? No, it's not Mark Andreessen. The author of a book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz, being a bit of a, he says that there's 2 types of CEO. There's a peacetime CEO and there's a wartime CEO. But the wartime CEO needs to, really steer the organization. The wartime CEO is very, very intense. The wartime CEO communicates very clearly and communicates frequently. Whereas, the CEO of Google, for instance, that's just growing on autopilot, is a peacetime CEO. Nothing is happening in Google. That thing is going to continue printing money. So they don't have to be as intense and intentional about what they do. That's a great book to read, by the way. You can download it on audible.com or listen to a synopsis on YouTube. But it talks about those type of CEOs, and definitely when you're in scaling mode or pivoting mode, you definitely need to decide what you're going to do about financing, and also decide what you're going to do about people management, and really get your team on side, and resell that vision to the team as you continue to execute that pivot or scaling.
Thank you so much. Very interesting answers you're dropping right there. And for our attendees, we're streaming live on YouTube, and I know some people can't get enough right now. Just to let you know that we're going to circulate the recording of this, so you can binge on it if you so desire. So I have another question from Ibrahim Ibishomi. His question is, how has flying doctors tackled the twin challenges of inadequate obsolete medical equipment and substandard adulterated drugs in delivering its services? So did you get that? And then I would like to take a second question. Lukman Adeola is also asking, I am more interested about the mentorship. How can someone go about this in Nigeria, especially in Nigerian health sector? Well, I'm aware that you have responded to a question about mentorship before. Someone will also like to know, Abdulganiyu Ademola, do you have a website? That's a question to you. Go ahead, ma'am. You have the floor.
So, Ibrahim's question, how do you sort of navigate around inadequate medical equipment and adulterated drugs? So we expanded horizontally, and we took a stake in a drug manufacturing company. So now we manufacture all the drugs that we use, which is great within the group. And then for medical equipment, we actually sell medical equipment. We need a lot of medical equipment, but we also sell. We buy in bulk directly from the manufacturers, and we have great manufacturing partners across the world that deliver the highest standard of medical equipment. So we've never had any of those. We've not encountered any problems with those 2 things. A bit more of mentorship. Again, I think Nigerians are, after religion, is mentorship. Oh, I need a mentor. If only I had a mentor, this thing will happen. If only I knew this person. You got to spend 5 minutes with this person. He will change your life in a second. I know those people, and they've never changed my life. Like the idea of like you will run into one helper and the person will just do something miraculous. It doesn't really work. I think mentorship, rather than like a one-time meeting or a meeting with a certain big person that you've been wanting to meet, it's barely ever life-changing. I think the most life-changing moments I've had with people that have mentored me have been with a paid coach that I pay on a regular basis, and we sit down, and I know that that payment means that I respect their time. Not really that the money is worth what the person's time is, but it means that I respect their time. And I've paid what is a lot of money for me for that session, first of all. And those have been where I've really had my breakthroughs. But I've also had big breakthroughs from my peers, from sitting down with a group of 6 to 7 people and really brainstorming about our different businesses and setting up a protocol with which we can do that. So I think people have this magical, idea that it's, going to be a meeting with Mike Adenuga for 5 minutes. It's going to be this, and he's going to say something so amazing and it's going to change my life. That's not really my idea of mentorship. My idea of mentorship is more around that continuous process of having a great coach that seems expensive at the beginning, but has a good return on investment, and also sitting down with peers and being able to dedicate time on a weekly, monthly, or quarterly basis to help each other grow and to take advice from each other as well. So that's sort of about mentorship. I've ticked that off. And then the last question was about my website. So my personal website, I think, is drolaorokunrinbrown.com, I think. I haven't really checked it in some time. Then the Flying Doctors Healthcare Investment Group website is FDHIC. And then the Flying Doctors Nigeria website, which is a company that I've started, I've now stepped down from running that, but I'm still on the board of directors, and that's the flyingdoctorsnigeria.com.
Thank you, Doc. We have time for just about 2 more questions. So, but very quickly, I'm going to allow Fatima Salaudin. You have raised your hand. Fatima Salaudin, please go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question live. Fatima Salaudin. Okay, while we're waiting for Fatima, I'm sure she still will do that. I'm going to take another question. This question is from Ayodeji Abdul-Rauf, who's the CEO, founder of Think Startup Beyond Borders. He says, what are the unique resilience spirit techniques in a new normal for small business? Doc, over to you.
I love the fact that you said resilience building, because that means that you believe that resilience is not something that you're supernaturally born with, it's something that's a skill. And I think that, just like you build up muscle when you're exercising, just like you build up a stamina when you're running and you can run further distances, or when you're climbing, I think that you can build resilience. And there's a great class on LinkedIn Learning by a lovely lady, I've forgotten her name, that actually teaches. She teaches on resilience. So if you have LinkedIn Premium or you take a free trial on LinkedIn, then you can actually take her course. It's about a 1.5 hour course, but she talks about how to build resilience and gives really practical tips, more than I can give in the 1 minute that I have to speak about resilience. But if I was to say what sort of are the key resilience factors in the new normal, I think trying to digitalize our businesses a bit more, to move from a more brick and mortar to online, increasing our online presence, advertising more online, and promoting more online using content marketing and using webinars, are the things that a lot of small businesses have been forced to sort of move their businesses into, and that's a big part of the new normal. I think also internationalizing our businesses for a global perspective. I think the current generation of millionaires and billionaires have been very focused on Africa. I think that we need to be more ambitious and be more globally focused. So if you look at the startup nation of Israel, which receives more venture capital per capita than any other country in the world, they have a very small population, but they're globally focused. They build products for the American market, the European market, the Australian market, South American market. And I think that this generation of Nigerian entrepreneurs in the new normal, where we're more connected via digital digital relationships, has a unique opportunity to also build those global relationships and start building for not just African markets, but global markets.
Thank you, Doc. Okay, I've gotten a lot of commendations so far, which I'm sure you are used to hearing, but I'm going to share one in particular. Abisayo Umar says, thank you, Dr. Ola Brown. Hearing you speak makes all your write-ups so much more congruent and immensely beneficial. Kudos to the organizers and hosts of this program. So thank you, Doc. Actually, I do enjoy your writing a lot. I read some of your content, and I'm like, I find it, of course, insightful, humorous. I love your writing style.
Thank
So
you.
we're going to take the final question within our time frame. This question is from Daniel Folorenshaw. Since there is no success without a successor, how can private business owners in Nigeria adequately create and achieve workable succession plans?
So I think that in terms of succession plans, I think that's something that is really important. And I think it's something that a lot of founders find difficult to do. I think that structure is important. I think that accountability is important as well. So being able to, structure your business in a way that you do have leadership, trained managers to be able to manage a business. Structuring the business in the way where people say systems and processes and they repeat it like a mantra, but they don't actually realize what it means. And I would advise that if you want to know and learn about systems and processes, then the best book to read is, gosh, it's gone out of my head now. Is it the myth? E-Myth? E-Myth is the best book to read for small businesses around putting structure in place for your business. If you go on YouTube, you'll be able to find summaries of the E-Myth. It's one of the best books for small businesses in terms of structuring your business. But if you really want to get the full value, I would say that after watching, oh yes, Michael Gerber, thank you. If you want to get the full value, then that's the absolute best book to read. It's the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. But he also has a lot of free talks on YouTube, and that can help you place structure into your business. Nigeria has a lot of retired professors that are very smart, or current professors that are very intelligent. They don't have to be from one of the Ivy League, Unilag, or OAU, or any of those ones, but they can be from polytechnics, but they're highly educated, great people, and they're free for your board appointments. So you can go and recruit one of those professors and have a chairman of your board of directors. And that helps place structure. That gives you somebody to report to. And I find that, older people, retired people can help you add structure to your business. If you want to transition out and do something else and you want that business to keep running, then putting a proper governance structure in place and not going for expensive people again. You don't need celebrities on your board. What you need is people that will work on the board and will help your business grow. And that's why I suggest old people that are retired, especially professors that are working in polytechnics, university, they have some time, but they're highly, highly educated. They're very, very analytical. And in my experience, they add a lot of value.
We can't get enough, but unfortunately, every good thing sometimes has to an end. I cannot thank you enough for honoring our invite to feature on today's edition of our Citadel webinar series. And the same goes to you, Segilola. And I'm challenged today. I think the summary of the impact for me is that I think I have to change careers, and I'm thinking of something very drastic. I need to make like a 180-degree turn, like marine biology or space fashion or something, something that is just very challenging. Thank you very, very much for your time. To our esteemed attendees, we thank you as well. We look forward to receiving the content that you promised to share with us, Doc. And to everybody that has been here so far, I'm really grateful on behalf of VKO Citadel. We are the visionary behind this webinar series. We say thank you. We are a strategy, manpower development, and capacity building firm. And our channel on YouTube is VKO Citadel. We are going to share the link to this recording afterwards. So I just want to say, please join us again and again. Thank you very much for the time. Segilola, thank you so much. Doctor, thank you very much. Everybody, I say adios.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure being. Take care.